beginning his new venture with entertainment label Street Scholars. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting here with manager, industry veteran, entertainment consultant, and soon-to-be music supervisor, Ian Burke.
That's good. Yes, hey.
How you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming. We appreciate you, taking the time out to talk to us.
Right. Anything for Curtis. Anything for Curtis.
Anything for Curtis. That's usually how it goes. People love Curtis. So first off, let's just talk about you've done a lot for the Atlanta music industry. You've been in the industry for over 25 years, 25 plus years. But you're not from here.
No.
You're actually from New York.
Yes.
What part of New York?
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon.
Yes.
Upstate. Is that upstate?
No, it's an area of Westchester County, New
Gotcha.
Rochelle, Yonkers, White Plains.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but after high school, you decided to move to Atlanta.
Yes.
Why?
My parents were retiring and moving to Florida, and I wasn't trying to move to Florida.
Right.
But I wanted to be close to my family, so I heard about a school that was here that I could attend and still be relatively close to my family.
And what school was that?
DeVry Tech, yes.
Okay. And you were going there for music business?
No, I was actually going there for computer information systems, learning how to program and stuff like that on computers.
Well, for those that don't know Ian Burke, you've done so much with some of our favorite artists.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked with from TLC to MC Breed to, the list goes on. It's so many people who will get into that.
Right.
But just to kind of get a basis, how did you get your start from, you thought you were doing computer information systems.
Well, oddly enough, I'm the sixth of seven kids.
Oh, wow.
And music has always been a huge factor in my family. And my father was a musician.
Yeah.
So when I came down here, I just happened, and going to school, I happened to run into a gentleman that was, playing bass in a local band. And he the band was opening up for Howard Melvin and the Blue Notes one night at this place called Mr. V's Figure Eight, up on Cascade.
I'm familiar.
And
it was a different place before
yeah,
it closed.
it was so long ago.
Figure Eight.
Yeah, Mr. V's Figure Eight, and they need his help moving equipment and stuff like that. So I got a taste of what it was like being behind the scenes and moving equipment and setting up, and a bug just bit me, and just being backstage at that event. And I think one of the biggest impacts for me was at that time there was a boxer called Sugar Ray Leonard. Mm-hmm. He was the Floyd Mayweather of my time. You know what I'm saying? And he happened to be backstage. I remember just shaking his hand and him giving me like a little wink, like, what's up, guy? And I was like, yo, this is amazing. This is amazing. Like, I have to be a part of this. So I dropped out of DeVry and started attending the Art Institute of Atlanta. They back then they had a curriculum called the Music Business Institute, where they were teaching people things behind the music scenes, copyright law, marketing, promo, studio etiquette, and things of that nature. And that's basically where my music career sort of took off. I began to work for the band full time, and I started off as their roadie. Started doing a little bit of sound and lighting, and then I went up to booking the band to managing the band.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like a growing situation for me. And then I started working with several other bands in the city.
Yeah, I read you left. You weren't a roadie for much longer. You actually started to get other kids or other students around to do that while you were managing. Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's really cool, because as many people as I helped in front of the scenes, I also helped some folks behind the scenes as well. One of the people that I brought on, I was putting together a roadie crew. Well, first, my big story with the whole roadie situation was there was a band called Princess and Starbreeze. They came out around 87, 89. 87, 88. They were signed to MCA Records, and their lead singer, bass player, was a young lady named Deborah Killings. She was known as Princess. And basically, the long story short, like, I fell in love with her. I had this major star crush on her, and I started stalking the band and following. No, it's true story. It's true story.
Wow.
Following them around the gigs, and I became this little gnat. And their manager's here. The mother, Deborah's mother, was the manager. And I was like, yo, I wanna be a roadie. You know, your band is out here, y'all are signed to a major deal, and y'all still moving your own equipment. That don't make sense to me. So I was like, let me put together a crew, and we'll move their equipment and set everything up for them. They don't have to worry about that. And, you know, after constant nagging, she finally gave in. You know, and I put together a crew, and we would go to their house before the gigs, pack up the equipment and stuff like that, and load it onto the trucks, drive the trucks to the venue, unload it, and set up and everything. They were just like, wow, like, we've never had this before, you know what I'm saying? And that was the thing for me back then. Coming up in the business was being proactive. It's like see a need, fill a need.
Right.
You know, which is very hard to find in people today. I think, you know, we're in a millennial society that feels so entitled to things they don't want to work for. For me, coming up in this business was all about, you know, trying to show people that they needed me.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? One of the things, going back to Princess and Starbreeze, like, they had these road cases and they didn't have their names on them. You know, I would watch TV and all the rock bands had their names on there. So I got a stencil, cut out their names on the stencil, and went and spray painted their names all over their stuff. And nobody asked me. I just did it because I felt like it needed to be done.
Right.
And these people would look at me like I was from Mars. Like, what the hell? And they didn't, because I didn't ask for paid for it all out of my own pocket. Didn't ask them for nothing. Went and got T-shirts made because I was like, y'all don't have T-shirts. Went spent my money on some T-shirts. They were the god ugly T-shirts, but you know, at least they had T-shirts.
Right.
You know, and that's how my professional career began to blossom. They were being produced, and they worked with Joyce Fenderella Irby, who was a member of the band Climax from back in the 80s. And they had a young producer that was working in their camp too. He was 15, 16 at the time, named Dallas Austin. And, you know, I got to know everybody, you know, from being in their rehearsal space and all like that. And my name just started getting out there. People just started talking. And because of the things that I was doing, and it was like, you know, it was easier to find situations to
Put yourself into.
Put myself into it from that point on.
You mentioned just kind of, which I think it speaks to a lot to your like New York hustle. It's like an innate thing for New Yorkers to just
absolutely
make a way, you know,
absolutely.
out of nowhere, really. And like just you forming a roadie crew, you know what I'm saying? You were the roadie, like the only roadie at one point, and then you're like, no, I'm gonna just go ahead and form this team.
Right, I'm gonna put together a team. And it was easy. It was like, yo, the band is signed. They're signed at MCA Records, and you know.
It's a way.
It's
I
a way to
love
do
that.
it. But yeah, that was an advantage. I felt like me coming from up north, you know, especially Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, you have Heavy D, you have Denzel Washington, you have DJ Eddie F,
really?
You have Pete Rock, CL Smooth, you know what I'm saying? And then from Westchester, you have from Yonkers, Mary J. Blige and stuff like that. So a lot of us came from that small little area. You know what I'm saying? Came out, and a lot of people were successful from that. I just chose to make my due behind the scenes.
I love it. Yeah, I've read a few places that you're like a quiet heavyweight of the industry because, you know, you've moved and you've progressed without making a lot of noise necessarily. Right. So I like that. But early on, you started working more in the corporate side of things at an actual record label?
Yeah, well, what happened was, this is what happened. Before that started, a fellow schoolmate of mine, where he was, you know, probably a little bit behind me, named Ty Thomas, came up and introduced himself to me. We met, you know, through a mutual friend. And he introduced me to a friend of his named Headliner, who became my barber and was cutting my hair. That's why he was called Headliner. And they, at the time, had a group called Secret Society. And it was very Public Enemy type group, and Todd was from Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And, I started working with them and eventually started representing them. And, Todd had experienced two deaths. I believe his brother died and his grandmother died like a week apart from each other. So he went back home to Milwaukee, and when he came back, he had gone through this whole spiritual revolutionary situation. It's like, we're not going to be called Secret Society no more. We're going to be called Arrested Development.
Right.
And we started working on music, and we had all moved in together, and we started working on music in the apartment, and I started booking them and getting them gigs and just showing them out, and I took them as far as I could take them. And by this time, I had also made friends with Jermaine Dupri, another up-and-coming 14, 15-year-old producer who had done Silk Times Leather, did that whole album, youngest producer ever to do a full album on a major label. And we were becoming acquainted, and I became acquainted with his father, Michael Malden, who was a huge music manager at the time. And I invited him down to see the group perform, and he loved what he saw. And he took the group, and I relinquished my situation with them, and he ended up getting them signed to Chrysalis EMI. And then, when they finally got released, they sold like 4 million albums and won 2 Grammys.
That's amazing.
You know what I'm saying? So that, because of my relationship with that, and Michael Malden then said, hey, I have an opportunity for you at this label called Ichiban Records.
Gotcha.
And he said they're just building a hip hop division. They need somebody to come in and run it. And that's what that was my
putting in that groundwork.
Yeah, exactly.
My question for you, I guess, from that situation is like, what made you relinquish your your position with Arrested Development at that time? I mean, I heard you say you felt like you did all that you could, but what do you mean by that?
One of the traits I feel of being a good manager is just knowing your limitations and knowing that you've reached the end of your rope. There's my connections and everything, which is local.
Right.
Michael was a much bigger manager. He had a bigger reach, and he was a better fit for the group at this point. I had done all that I could do for him. So I had a choice. I can, try to hold on to him and stuff like that, or I can help them achieve their dreams. I chose to allow them to achieve their dreams.
Absolutely.
And it worked in my favor.
Yeah.
It was my first plaque. My very first plaque was a triple platinum plaque. You know what I'm saying? And, I got to be backstage and hang out with them, because I knew I wasn't there was no bad blood or anything. It was like, you guys are going with this. It was like the scene from, I don't know if you ever saw That Thing That You Do, the Tom Hanks movie, where he was a music executive, and he, found these 4 boys, but they were with a producer that also managed them. And his whole thing in the scene, when he introduced them to the record exec, I've done everything I can. It's time for you guys to grow and flourish on your own. I'll always be here for you guys.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is the man that's going to take you where you need to be.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened.
That's what's up. I like that. That's a good trait to have. I think that a lot of people, would want to hold on to.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on to that.
Hold on. I got you for 5 years.
Yeah.
Nah, you ain't going nowhere without me. I mean, there's definitely still a lesson to be learned, and I was still learning.
Yeah.
There's ways where, I could have stayed attached to the group. You know what I'm saying? But Michael helped open so many other doors for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
At the end of the day, it worked out.
It panned out. I actually toured overseas with one of his other groups and everything like that. He allowed me to go out as an assistant road manager and tour overseas.
Right.
I got to see part of the world. And my thing is, you can't. And then he got me a job.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ichiban Records.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you were responsible for. I know you said they opened a hip hop division. What were your responsibilities there?
Well, the funny thing about it is Ichiban got the bug from hip hop because they were the ones that actually put out the Vanilla Ice record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they put out Ice Ice Baby, but then they got bought out and something happened, and they actually lost the record and it went to another situation. But they had gotten bitten by the hip hop bug. So they started signing these god-awful hip-hop acts. And my responsibility was to market and promote them to radio. So I'm going and I'm calling and I'm sending this music. Nobody's calling me back. One of the covers, actually, that we put out got voted worst cover ever in hip-hop in The Source. magazine. It was the rappers, and they had on diapers, and they had on leashes, and women were walking them. And we actually put that. Yeah, it was.
No way.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Whose man's is this? Why nobody said like, nah, we're not doing
No, everybody's like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, this is gonna work. Somewhere somebody was like, oh, this is gonna be hot. And I had no power over how they how they packaged the situation or the music at that point.
Right.
So, yeah, I had to try to market these people. I know they were laughing at me when I called. I was calling college radio DJs. I was calling regular radio DJs. And like, yeah, we'll play it. You know what I'm saying? So it was like that until close to the summer of 91, and I got this record called Ain't No Future in Your Frontin'. By MC Breed, and that just turned everything around.
So the label discovered the song, or was it you?
Yeah, a gentleman came in. I can't forget his name. He came in, but he was doing a lot of work, and they worked out a distribution type situation, and they put this record in my hand, and it was like, okay, you promote it, and it was the easiest. Now everybody was calling me back.
Right.
I need more copies. At that point, we had vinyl and stuff like that, so I was shipping stuff out every day. And then, because finally I became that local dude because of the Ain't No Future in the Front record. Breed just broke out. That was one of the top songs in 91.
So how was it working with MC Breed? And
coolest. He was like one of the coolest guys ever from Flint, Michigan. Walking him around, taking him to different places, going to the poppin' music seminars that were going on at that time. Gavin, CMJ, Gavin in the Bay, and CMJ in New York. It was easy. It was, and he was just really cool and really laid back to work with. You know what I'm saying? Him and his crew, the DFC, really made my job a whole lot easier.
So how do you think MC Breed impacted the Atlanta community? Because, you got this guy coming from Flint, it's a different sound, and the record obviously took off. That's right. What you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't Atlanta by no means, but you know what I'm saying? This is where he broke. He broke out of Atlanta, and I feel like he still helped the music scene, because we were still struggling, especially as it related to hip-hop.
Yeah. We
had our local music scene, and then Luke was doing his thing in Florida, and that was a huge influence here in Atlanta. So, but we still at that time hadn't defined our own scene in the hip hop music at all.
And speaking of defining a scene, I know you had actually a lot to do with, I guess, making Atlanta-based music known to the world.
That
through
was
your relationships, being at a record label and being an exec.
Right. That was like fast forward with, and I guess we can go back, but we're jumping over the TLCs and Outkast and Organized Noise, but the bass scene was making its way, was making its rounds, and was doing very well here locally. Little John was also doing some things, and Jermaine put out the Social Death Bass All-Stars. But I had found an act called Diamond, and he had a young kid with him, a 15-year-old kid with him. Oh my goodness, Diamond and D-Rock, who later became half of the Yin Yang Twins. He was 15 years old at the time, and they had this song called "What's Up with the Bankhead Bounce." And at that time, Sylvia Rohn had hired me to do A&R here in Atlanta for Elektra Records. She had just gotten the job running Elektra Records, and she had hired me locally because of the things that she saw me doing. And I was like, hey, we gotta do this. Let's at least do a single deal with this situation. And we signed it. We put it out. It did extremely well, but there was a lot of controversy that came out because of that particular record.
Why?
Unfortunately, the producer of the record was charged with alleged child molestation of boys, and he ended up getting locked up, unfortunately, because we had a lot going on with that record. I actually had a publishing deal on the table with Big John. Big John at that time was making his name at EMI Music Publishing. Now he's Super Big John running Warner Brothers, or Warner Music rather. And when the news broke, it was like, oh man, we have to distance ourselves from the situation. So he was about to lay it down, and I had to call him and say, man, we might have to wait on this deal. Wow. Because I don't want anything to tarnish anything that you're trying to build over there at EMI. And this news just broke on the radio, on the news. And it was funny because I was in my office, and Big Gip from the Goody Mob, he called me and was like, yo man, are you watching TV? And I was like, nah. He said, man, turn on the news. I was like, what's up? He said, man, please just turn on the news right now. And yeah, I cut on the news, and sure enough, you know, the commercial, right after the commercial break, it came on. I was like, oh my God.
It's not good.
Not good. So, yes, I was one of the first to put out bass music on a major label, on a big scale, but it didn't last long. Unfortunately, that particular thing turned from victory to tragedy real quick.
So I know there are a bunch of people, because you mentioned how we skipped over TLC, in which we have to talk about TLC, right. Goody Mob, Organized Noise. There are a lot of people you met along the way that have helped fuel your career, I'm sure. Who are some of the people that you can, I guess, attribute to your success getting to these places? Because obviously with Ichiban, that you mentioned Jermaine and Michael Molden.
Deborah Killens, going back to her, like a lot of my connections happened in her basement, her mom's basement, and getting things done, once again, working with Dallas Austin at such a young age. And again, I was the one that introduced Dallas Austin to Jermaine Dupri at one point. Who else? That's pretty much behind the scenes.
Sylvia Rome.
Yeah, Sylvia Rome. And of course the boys from Organized Noise, because like they were the ones who, because when they got me, I was on the decline.
What was going on at the time that you ran into Organized Noise?
I was basically homeless at that point, because it was a mutual decision for me to split from Ichiban Records. I felt like I had to hit a glass ceiling, and I get bored quickly, which is not a good thing. So after a year of being out there, and after the success of the MC Pre record, we decided to part ways. And once again, the music scene wasn't happening here, so it wasn't like I can just jump up and get another job. LaFace Records was bubbling, but they hadn't exactly broke yet. So I was homeless, and I got pulled over at a traffic stop. Now, mind you, at this time, I was representing Xscape. I had got Xscape to Jermaine Dupri, but he hadn't signed them yet. And
let me ask you this before you continue. When you mentioned like representing these artists, were you like frequenting like showcases? How are you coming across just connections?
People would. My name was growing,
right.
Especially after the TLC thing. I was actually on a video set working on a Jermaine Dupri act that was signed to Ichiban Records, and Candy Burris' brother was introduced to me through another associate, and he basically said, yo, I know what you did for TLC. He said, my sister has a group, and I'd love for you to come check them out. And I was like, all right, cool. And I went and checked them out, and it was just like, wow, they're amazing. You know what I'm saying? Their voices, they were better than some of the male groups around at that time. And people would just bring situations to me.
Right.
And that's pretty much how I got to work with some of these acts. Now with TLC was something completely different. TLC was just a concept. A young lady named Crystal I was working with, she was dating headliner from Arrested Development, and she was doing background dances for a young lady that was signed to Atlantic Records, Angie. And I was like, she had this look that to me was like really cool, and she was a dancer and stuff. And I was like, yo, we need to do something with you. So I started auditioning different people and experimenting with different, experimenting with different things. And around that time also BBD came out, and I was a fan of their not just their music but their style. I was like, yo, if they ever do a female group like this, it would be off the chain. And I always thought that they were going to do something with their background dancers and make them come out and do that, but they never did. So I started toying around with that type of situation. And once again, and this is all before, I linked up with Organized Noise. Before they were Organized Noise, they were a group called the U-Boys. It was Rico Wade, Patrick Sleepy Brown, a gentleman by the name of Ramon Campbell, Marquez Etheridge, who ended up writing Waterfalls, and another gentleman named Troy. And so they were vying for my attention. They were managed by a young lady named Sydney Darden, who was also a music executive here. And so when I put the word out that I was kind of looking for a tomboyish type group, he knew of a young lady and was like, yo, you got to meet this young lady. I'm going to introduce her to you. And I was like, all right, cool. And he was to bring her to an audition over at Sydney Darden's house for the audition for me and Crystal. And she was at work. She couldn't come. So he brought this other girl. And right away, this girl had on a skirt and everything like that. And I was just like, no, it's not the image I'm looking for. She had on a little pleather skirt and everything like that. And I was just like, nah, that's not going to work. So I went in the back to kind of meet with the group. Crystal stayed up front with the girl. And she comes in the back and says, Ian, you got to hear this girl. And I'm like, well, because that's not the image I'm looking for. But just let her write for you. Her name was QT. And so she comes in and she starts rapping and doing this quick tongue stuff like Monie Love did back in the day. And I was like, oh, snap. Then she jumped up and did a split in that skirt. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're hired. You got it. But you can't dress like that. That's not the look I'm looking for. Yeah. So I'm looking for more of a baggy thing, a more tomboyish type of situation. And she was like, well, that's how I dress anyway. I just thought that this is what you wanted.
For a girl group, right?
You know what I'm saying? I said, nah, I'm looking for something a little bit less risque and more on the hip-hop side. So she made the group that night, and I was really excited. Actually, at that time, I had three girls. I had another girl named Lisa that was in the group. But so at that time, I had my three. I had Lisa, who was in the group. I had the rapper QT, and then I had Crystal. But I was still excited to meet this girl that Rico was telling me about. So we left the house and went over to her house at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so you ask how I find these people. To me, a star isn't, there are two things. Is the people who are talented and then they're stars. You know what I'm saying? And the stars can have some sort of talent, but they work, because to me, stars are people that pull you in. That no matter what they do, when they walk in the room, you're like, who is that? You know what I'm saying? Who? What do you do? Right. So when Tion opened the door at 2 o'clock in the morning and wiping the sleep from my eyes, I was like, that's it. I got my group. I kicked the other Lisa out the group. At that moment, I was like, you're in my group. And so you want to hear me sing? I said, you can sing if you want to, but it doesn't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? You're in the group. So I had Tion, I had QT, who changed her name to Left Eye, and then I had Crystal. And I put them all together. We came up with the name Second Nature. And I went back to my old friend Jermaine Dupri. And I was like, I need you to help me put a demo on this record. And he had 3 boys that he was working with. And he saw the package I put together on Second Nature. He said, if you do the same type of packaging on my group, the group was called ALF, A Little Funk, I'll do songs for your group. So I said, all right, cool. So I called the same photographer. We're doing stuff for this little rap group that he has, and he's producing music for the girls, and he is the one who told Tion to sing in that lower register. So he got that signature sound from Tion. Wow. And then he took the boys that I was working with for him, and he put their clothes on backwards, and Second Nature became TLC, and A Little Funk became Crisscross. Wow. And that was my affiliation with the whole thing. So then in 1990-91, all 3 groups were released. One on EMI Chrysalis, one on LaFace, and one on Rough House Columbia. All of them with multi-platinum. All of them were nominated for Grammys, and one of them won 2 Grammys the following year. So it was just like, from that explosion, everybody knew that I was in the midst of all of that, because I was taking them around town.
Yeah.
I was driving for Crisscross. I was taking and putting TLC or Second Nature in front of anybody that I could muster to try to get them a situation. And of course, people knew my affiliation with Arrested Development. So because of that, people began to seek me out, and that's how Candy's brother came to approach me on this set of this video and say, I know what you did. Can you do the same thing for my sister's group?
So to answer this, you pretty much, made millionaires and very successful groups and artists from all of the decisions you made and helping, just out of the kindness of your heart and your passion for this.
Mm-hmm.
How did it get to a point where you were homeless and you didn't have what you needed at that point?
My thing is, to a fault, is my passion for the business. Like, I just love being able to create something from nothing and discover something that I feel the rest of the world needs to see and put it out there. I didn't think forward enough to be like, well, let me make sure that I'm protected.
You're secure, right?
Yeah. And I thought that at the end of the day, that the things that I did for people would eventually come back to me. You know what I'm saying? You know what my position is. You know what I did for the situation. So you'll come back and make sure that I'm straight. And even though I remain good friends with most of these people, at the end of the day, they just wanted to be stars. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to be able to do things that, they thought that they would never be able to do. Mm-hmm. And, they had to go and do their thing, and unfortunately, it wasn't one of those situations where folks looked back and said, you know what, come and we're going to build something together. One person did that, and without me having to prompt it, and that was Left Eye. We got together in 1999 and we began to build, and she was taking me all over and introducing me to everybody and putting me in front of everybody, and we began to build from that point on, and it was amazing, all the way up to when she passed. But she was the one that looked back and was like, yo, I know what you did for me. I see what you've done for others. Let's do it together.
Right.
And I'll provide the resources and things like that you need to make it happen. And unfortunately, we never got to see anything realized from that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So that's my thing. And it's still in me to a fault. Like, I have to say goodbye to a lot of people that I worked with, because people just feel like, well, you've done as much as you can, and we need to get with bigger situations and things of that nature, and what can I do? Right. I won't stop doing what I do.
So do you believe the music industry loves you the way you love the music industry?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm still here, after, like you said, 25, 30 years, I'm still here. You know what I'm saying? And I still go through my issues, my ups and downs, but it's what I love. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I'll always make a way for myself in this business. So
do you feel like you get the credit for your contributions? Are you interested in getting the credit for your contributions?
Well, it's coming around now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? The fact that even though they cut my story with TLC completely out of the biopic, the one thing that Tian was able to maintain, and she made sure that stayed in the film, was the fact that, my name was mentioned in connection with putting the group together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, at least in the beginning of the film, you hear them say, hey, Ian Burke is looking for you for that group. You know what I'm saying? So, and then with the Xscape biopic, even though that's embroiled in a lot of controversy right now, because the group's feelings about how TV1 is doing this situation. You know, you can't really tell. Jermaine didn't want to tell that story without me being involved, because, you know, there would be no Xscape as you know it today if I hadn't have been involved, if I hadn't have been persistent in taking those girls to do Jermaine and then waiting a year before he could actually sign them. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I get to do great podcasts like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the story is going to be out.
So sure. The story is definitely going to be out. Most people know it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And stories, people talk about me in books. Jermaine talked about me in his book, and there are other books that have been released that have talked about my contributions. So, I mean, that's all we're here for, really, in my opinion, is to build a legacy. I just want to be talked about when I'm not here anymore. You know what I'm saying? And the fact of the matter is that I've worked with some of the biggest international stars ever to come out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And most of these folks owe their careers to me. You know?
Yeah,
and I could be bitter. You know what I'm saying? I can have a chip on my shoulder. But why? At the end of the day, why? There's always new acts out there that could use what I bring to the table. You know?
So, like, I guess moving forward, you know, even today, I kind of just, I'm jumping around here, but what is something that, you know, you didn't know then that you wish you know, knew, or that you wish you knew then that you know now? I guess is a better way. And, like, you know, moving forward with your new venture, I see you have on your
my Street Scholar.
Street Scholar.
Street Scholar, yeah.
Promotion here.
You know, I you know, sometimes, you know, people look at people like Suge Knight and Gene Griffith as the bad guys. They're the bad guys of the industry.
Yeah.
But they were very successful at what they did. Yeah, they did it to the extreme. You know, but you have to have a little bit of that in you in order to really make it in this industry.
Yeah.
I'm more of a passive person. You know what I'm saying? And I wish I had a little bit more of that aggression, even to seek out, you know, with certain acts. It's like, okay, look, and dealing with certain people, you know, if I could go back to my younger self, I'd be like, look, talk to these people and say, look, you can have this. Just cut me into this part of it. Let me do this with the group, and at least let me build my situation instead of just giving it away like I did.
Yeah.
My whole thing was like, yo, I just want y'all to achieve your goals.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if I could do anything over it, it would have that natural New Yorker. The hustle mode was in there, but that one streak was like, nah, you got to make sure, don't destroy the deal, but make sure that you get yourself in that pocket so that you're taken care of.
Absolutely. Aside from your work with artists, I think one thing that I read up about was that you made your contributions to the community through this benefit concert. In particular, was the church fire benefit?
Right. There was. I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna ask why it was necessary for you to do that, and, you know, like what came about from that.
Well, you know, they were burning churches. You know, at that time they were burning churches all over the South.
It's crazy.
And my thing was, okay, how are we going to?
And this is in the 90s.
In the 90s. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to raise money to set this situation off? So I came up with, hey, let's do a concert with all electro artists. You know, I had just signed Akon. Keith Sweat was on electro already. I had
Bobby
Michael.
Valentino.
Well, Bobby was part of Mr.
Okay.
At that time. Yes. You know, so they had a song out called Blackberry Molasses. And then there was another gentleman named Michael Speaks, and I just put together like an all-star concert. And I went to the different labels here, because at that point, there were a lot of labels springing up that had distribution through majors. And I just went, I need 10 grand. I need 5 grand. I need y'all to contribute. And the labels rose to the occasion, and we raised $50,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you had, you were able to impact those churches and rebuild, or was that used to rebuild those churches?
Yeah, that was sent to, there was an organization that came up to help rebuild the churches, and I just gave the donation to them.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was really interested in that because I didn't know. I mean, I'm from here, but I didn't know. I probably was extremely young about the church fire.
Right, yeah.
So, like, the Spree Church Fires. That's what's up. But after you had your time at Elektra, you actually worked with ASCAP, which for those that are listening probably do know, but like songwriters.
Right.
It said that you helped rebrand them though. And what does that mean? What was your contribution to ASCAP?
At that time, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, the three performance rights organizations that are in this country, they were like the low end of the totem pole, when it came to music business. So you had the recording situations, you had your publishing deals, and then you had us.
Right.
And there was nothing sexy about being a part of, one of these organizations. Now, BMI was here first. They had opened up their office here first, and their representative was going around and doing the rounds. And finally, ASCAP was like, we have to, all this music is coming out of Atlanta. We have to get a scene here. So the funny thing about it is that the people knew who I was, but they didn't hire me. They weren't looking to hire me. When they called me, it was like, well, we're sending a representative around. Can you drive them around to these interviews? And I was like, sure, that's all good. Because I knew the folks at ASCAP. So I'm driving this guy around, and he's asking me questions, and I'm the same thing. I'm giving him my history, and we're just having conversations. He's doing all these interviews. I'm taking him to these spots. He's doing these interviews, and all I'm doing is driving him around. And finally, at the end of the night, he said, "Man, we need to give you this job." And I thought he was kidding, but he went back and told the person that was putting together the department, like, we need to hire Ian Burke. And she called me and said, well, my guy feels like we need to hire you. And so if you're interested, the job is yours. And I took the job. And the first year was disastrous because I didn't know what the hell to do. I'm here in Atlanta, and I'm here by myself. And I'm running it in the Southeast, and I didn't know what to do. I had my salary. I had a $25,000 expense account, and I didn't know how to use it. And they came very close to firing me a couple of times within the first year. So you're not doing anything. So finally, it just dawned on me and said, well, let me start putting together some events and some networking events and start helping these writers network with artists, with producers and things of that nature. So once I got into a groove of that, you know what I'm saying, that's when it started to pop. And then all of a sudden, I was signing up more writers in the Southeast than New York and LA combined. Wow. And yeah, it grew from there. My name grew from that particular point. It was like, yo, let's go see Ian, because he's paying attention to these up and coming songwriters. Like I signed Keri Hilson, I signed Sierra. I was able to move Shakespeare, who did those big records on TLC, and Destiny's Child. I was able to move him from BMI over to ASCAP. And that within itself was an interesting story, because he had two back-to-back pop records, not R&B records, pop records, back-to-back number ones. And he couldn't get anybody from BMI on the phone. And I had been with him, working with him. I had brought him Candy and Tiny to write No Scrubs because he was supposed to be producing a project for them. Right. So I'd always had a relationship with him. He said, you know what, Ian, all this time, I've been a BMI writer, but you still showed me love. You were there when I needed you. So I think I'm going to switch over, And so BMI came around and offered him a large sum of money to stay. And I heard about it, and I was like, well, I know he's not going to pass that up. And I went down on him. It's a large sum of money. And, this was one of my greatest stories, because I just think it was the coolest thing ever, and he'll always have my respect for it. But I was like, hey, man, I get it. Go ahead and stay over there, get that check. It's all good. And he was like, man, I'm going to get that money anyway. He said, all they doing is advancing me money that I'm making off of these records. Right. He said, I tell you what, you get me a PlayStation, the new PlayStation, and I'll go over to ASCAP. And me and my boss went over, stood in line. This is when the PlayStation first came out. Stood in line, bought him a PlayStation. He signed his papers and became an ASCAP member.
You're real for that one.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was right. He was like, all they were doing was advancing him his money anyway.
We sat down and talked to him as well. So really? I already know what type of guy he is. Yeah. I respect that. That's what's up. That's funny. Yeah. PlayStation.
You that's all he wanted.
Too, or he just wanted the PlayStation?
He just wanted the PlayStation. They had the free game that came with it. And he was happy. You know, he signed over, became an ASCAP writer. You know, so
wow,
yeah.
that is what's up. So speaking of like your relationships with people, we mentioned your what relationships impacted you, but I know that you've probably had many interns and many people that you've employed or been able to put them in certain positions. My question is, why is it important for you to give those people an opportunity?
It's the same thing as artists. It's watching them grow. Like with the story that I began earlier with the roadie crew, there was a young lady named Kim Burse that was part of that. She's a musician and everything like that, and she just grew up to be a force in the industry. Do you know who Kim Burse is?
Yeah, I know. She's amazing.
Kim Burse is the creative director for Beyonce, Sierra, all of these people. She's a musician. She's the music director for the Black Girl Rock situations on BET. And to watch her star grow after I brought her into that situation, it's been amazing to me. Yeah. It's amazing. That's my blessings, really, honest and truly. And I know it may sound corny or whatever, but at the end of the day, watching somebody grow, someone that you help put in the game, that is more important to me than money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's my success story, because at the end of the day, I know that I was part of that situation.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah. You know,
it speaks to who you are as a person, though. I respect it, for sure.
Tasha Stafford, also, I brought her in, and she was my assistant at Elektra while I was at Elektra Records. And she broke out and started doing her own thing. And I helped to get some of her clients for her independent company called Enlight Entertainment. And I watched her grow. Now she has, sorry, Curtis, one of the more popular studios here after Patchwerk. I'll say that, you know what I'm saying? We don't have this huge, beautiful room, but, we do have a popular studio that she owns now, over there around not far from here, so that's another story, just watching these people grow and blossom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just amazing to me.
That's dope. So some people associate, another part of what you do is music consulting or entertainment consulting. And some people associate consulting with more financial or business, like these big corporations. But you've made consulting a part of your job in the music industry. I guess I want you to describe what that entails and what you do for the client and how that benefits them.
Well, we're in a do-it-yourself type of situation. I actually enjoy this time period a little bit more than I did back in the day, because now the artist really has to stand up and do a lot on their own to make them shine. And my job is to show them a path, if you will, how they can go and market and promote themselves, whether it's through social media, doing creative videos on YouTube or Vimeo, or things of that nature. How to promote yourselves, and not just on social media. That's cool, but you still have to go out into the real world as well, and people have to see you creating shows and creating a buzz for yourself. And that's essentially what I do, and then I have people that I'm attached to. In some instances, artists need creative development, vocal lessons, choreography, exercise, and things of that nature. So I subcontract other people to come in and work with the artist. And because I bring these people work, I get the work done for cheaper than they would be able to go and contract these people themselves.
Gotcha.
So I try to make things affordable for not artists, independent labels, publishing companies, and whoever wants to come in and sit down with me and talk about it. The biggest problem with that is most of the time, I'd say about 80% of the time, people don't want to listen. They want to do things their own way. And then when things don't pop off because they don't listen, I'm the blame for it. So everybody's like, well, yeah, Ian messed us up. Ian took my money. And I'm like, no, I told you to do this, and you insisted on doing that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there's only so much that I can do. I can't force you to do it. You hired me to consult. That's what I do. Whether or not you take my consultation, it's completely up to you. These people do not want to listen. They want to go and spend money on things that they don't need to spend money on because they're trying to look like kingpins. And then when they've exasperated their money, they're looking at me like, well, I thought I was going to be here. No. You know, had you listened to me, you might be a little bit further than you are right now, but you went and spent all your money on this situation. It was a total waste of time and a total waste of money. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I deal with those type of situations.
Yeah. People don't like to listen.
No, I don't want to listen.
People don't want to listen.
You hired me. This is the most contradictory thing in the world. You hired me to consult you, but then you don't want to listen. And I think a lot of them hire me because of my background. Yeah, I'm working with Ian Burke. I don't care, but that's stuff I did back in the 90s, you know, and I get it. Smoke and mirrors, that's part of the industry too. But we still have to follow proper protocol in order to get the job done. And the way you're doing it is not going to work. I promise you, but you know.
Hey, you can't help them all, right?
Exactly.
So currently you've entered in a new chapter with your career. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on now. I don't know if you're still pursuing the TV and film industry.
Absolutely.
Okay, the TV and film industry was obviously a big part. A lot of people that I've sat down with recently mentioned that they have that they're entering that realm after music.
Right.
So tell me about your new ventures and what you have going on now.
Well, Atlanta's film and TV now. I'm sure that everybody would agree to that. The music business is definitely here. It will always be here. But the real money is film and television. You know, we're like number 2 or 3 in the country. You know what I'm saying? And every time it's funny. Every time I drive, I almost thought that there was a movie set right out here, but I think they're doing construction or something.
No,
like that.
they're filming.
They're filming. So I'm driving through this, and I'm like, it looks like because they got security guards there. And I'm just like, why do they have security guards? They're just doing. But I didn't see any production trucks, so they hide it very well. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. Every day I see the yellow signs with the fake names, and I'm like, yeah, I got to get involved. And I started in a little bit. I was managing a young actor named China McClain and her sisters.
Yeah, from the
House of Pain. Yeah, she was 7 years old, and there was a young director named Rob Hardy with a company called Rainforest Films that was also based here. He needed a 7-year-old actor, and China was 7. I said, I got your star. You don't have to look anywhere else. And I sent him to her, and of course he still kept me waiting for like 3 months. But then after that, it's like, yeah, she got the part. And then from there, you know, I started working with her and her sisters, and it all started. I managed her father. It was as a music producer. He actually produced a song on Solange's album.
Wow.
Her first album. And so that's how it all started. Once again, it was the music thing that brought me into film and television. And, you know, she went on to do House of Pain, and then she became a Disney star. You know what I'm saying? And then just recently I had another young lady that was getting no's all over the place. And finally Netflix came to us, and even though they weren't paying as much as the other Disney and Nickelodeon situations, it was an opportunity for us to go film a series in London, which she was going to be a co-lead. And the series is actually out now. It was released June 22nd on Netflix, called Free Reign. And she did an amazing job with that. But the thing of it is, the thing that was special about this girl is shortly after we finished shooting, they started casting for That's So Raven reboot. And she was one of the first. Atlanta was one of the first markets. She was one of the first people seen. They went all over the country, and they came back to her and said, we want to give you the part. Now, the rub is that, you know, when you're dealing with first and second positions, Disney is always the first position. That means they're first. You work their schedule around Disney, anything else that you're doing. They wanted her so bad that they took second position to the Netflix show. So now she has 2 shows. The second show, the Raven show, is airing on the July 21st. The other show is already airing. So she has 2 shows at one time. And I knew it was going to happen because she was an amazing young actor. And I just found another 6-year-old boy going on 7. Well, he just turned 7 the 4th of July. I'm going to do the same thing with him. You just see it when they walk into the room, their presence is felt. You can't help but be like, look at this kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but that's part of the thing with me being in film and television. I also want to get into the whole music supervision thing.
And what does that mean?
That's providing music or seeking music to go. And when you see your movies and you hear the music playing in the background,
Gotcha.
there's a person that supervises those particular selections that go into the film.
Gotcha.
And, you know, that's one of the things that I want to build for myself. But currently, with this new company, I met a gentleman from Florida. We were introduced by a mutual friend. He was starting a record company called Street Scholar. And at first, it was all about consulting. You know, but I found myself coming in and taking a larger role. And I said, we're going to diversify. And he was like, well, I'm with that. And I said, we're going to do music, we're going to do publishing, we're going to do technology, and we're going to do film and TV. So we started. As a label, we signed young Beja Rodriguez, former member of the OMG Girls.
Oh, really?
And we're working on her album right now. I pitched a show to a very well-known production company here. I pitched a concept of a show. They fell in love with it, and we got our contracts now for them to come in and co-produce the sizzle piece with us. We're going to shoot the sizzle piece, and then we're going to start shopping to the networks in the fall. And we also have an idea, and we're mapping it all out for the map for an app for our technology piece. And of course, you know, we're signing songwriters and producers for the publishing.
Busy man.
Busy. So it's a situation where now I feel like I'm in more control of the situation. This guy happens to be very well financed. He's in real estate, very well financed. And, you know, he lets me get done what I need to get done, and, you know, we're building, you know.
I love it. You have a sense of like just kind of knowing a star when you see him, whether it be through music or, you know, just the entertainment industry overall.
Yes.
What is it? Have you discovered what that is about you? Like, is it just innate? Is something that just came to you as a child?
I think it's one of, when I was young, I listened to a lot of the music. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just urban music. You know, my brother was in the Navy. I got introduced to Elton John, the Eagles, Kiss, and Chicago, and things, and groups of that nature. My father was into the old Fats Waller, Harry Belafonte live at Carnegie Hall. You know what I'm saying? My sisters were into the Temptations. My baby sister was into Kenny Rogers and DeBarge. And I, of course, was heavily influenced early on by the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson, and then by Prince.
Yeah.
So when I listened to records, I would sit and study the liner notes. And I would read, I would know, okay, there's writers, there's producers, there's managers, there's studios, there's engineers, and I wanted to know everybody that did everything. I just studied the liner notes as I'm listening to the music. And I think that kind of, I paid attention to what drew people in. And one of the things, when I was going to the Art Institute, I saw this movie called The Idolmaker. That was based on a true story that happened back in the 50s. And one of the things that this guy did, he would go to the stands and he would go through the fan magazines. Who are people looking into? Who are always on and I did that every time. I did it religiously. I go to CVS, I go to Kroger, whatever shop, and I would go through Right On, Black Beat, Tiger Beat, a Yo, you know what I'm saying? The Source, who I ended up writing for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wrote for the Source. They were doing these regional reports, and there was nothing coming out of Atlanta. I said, I called up the guy, and we're still friends to the day. At that time it was David Mays and another gentleman. I said, y'all need to let me do the Southern report. And I said, all right, go ahead, write it. And they were printing my stories.
Wow, that's dope.
You know what I'm saying? So I would go through these magazines, and I would see what people were into, and then I just applied that to what I felt that people were into. Same thing with movies. Like, I would watch movies over and over and over again.
Yeah, you've referenced a few movies, actually, I've never seen yet. So.
Yeah, that's just my thing, you know. But you learn what draws people in, what makes these movies hot. You know, what makes these songs so dope? What makes people want to go see this artist live? You know what I'm saying? Adele, you know, a heavy-set white girl from England, but people are drawn in. Why? Because she's singing songs that people can relate to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So she can have back-to-back diamond albums in the freaking States and tour all over the place and not give a damn.
Yeah.
You know, in a time where records aren't really selling right now. So for me, that's been my gift. When people are blessed to sing, people are blessed to rap, people are blessed to dance, you're blessed to do interviews and whatever else that you do. My thing is being able to spot a star or feel someone when they walk into the room.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing blessing, an amazing talent to have. And I'm sure those that you have impacted appreciate you for being there to discover.
I hope so.
They do. I'm sure they do.
At the end of the day, I hope so.
Well, I know that people appreciate you, but do you feel like people recognize, or have you realized your value? And when did you discover it? If you
I think it was just recent with the biopics and stuff like that. And people call me, and all the I've done behind the music. I've done Driven. I've done Unsung. I've done Being, and you know, just being a part of those things and people asking me questions, like, you know, it just makes me go back and like, wow, you know, you have to sit back, because I don't keep count of that stuff. It's just something that I do.
Yeah.
You know, so it made me go back and think like, wow, I've done a lot. You know what I'm saying? But it is not, I'd say within the last few years, you know, and it happens when things aren't going so well, where you slightly get it, and look, everybody does it. Everybody gets depressed because things just seem to take a left turn, and you have to sit there and pull the blankets over your head. And then you go and cut the TV on, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's Unsung Xscape. You know, one of the most watched episodes of that particular series. And I'm just like, wow, okay. Snap out of it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Everybody goes through this. I remember Puffy telling the story, like, when he got fired from Uptown Records. Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't want to hear from nobody, you know, and when he finally went back and listens to his voicemail, he has a message on there from Clive Davis saying, yo, come on, let's sit down and let's talk. You go through these times so that when the brightness, when the light comes through, it's like you can't have a day without the night. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But when you wake up the next morning, you're appreciative. Number one, because you're still alive. Mm-hmm. And number two is like the day is beautiful. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if the sun is out. I don't care if the snow is blowing. You're alive, and it's a beautiful day. And you move on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn that, you know, later in life. You know, I started in this game when I was 20, and I'm 51 going on 52 right now. I've had a much longer career in this business than most have had. You know what I'm saying? And I've certainly discovered a lot more stars than some of the people that I even admire. Mm. So, you know, it took a while, but yeah, now I can sit back, because if anything were to happen to me, I can sit back and say, you know what, I did something. I made a change in people's lives. Not just the people that I worked with, but the people that were affected by the music that I helped create.
Absolutely.
So, you know, yeah, I realize it now.
You recognize your value.
Yeah, I recognize it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took some time, but yeah.
It's all good. I know earlier you mentioned those that you impacted at their careers and helped them go on to start studios and be music executives throughout their career just from working with you. Mm-hmm. I want you to kind of name, I guess, some people that have definitely been impacted by you. Like, I think you're definitely an industry veteran, like an industry father to some, probably. So could you name some of the people that came behind you?
Yeah, I have to think about it. You know, there's definitely a few. Dee Dee Hibbler was already in the music business when I met her, but I brought her over to the Organized Noise family, and she helped me raise those boys into the men that they are today, you know, and she took over the reins after a while. Mm-hmm. and help shape that whole situation. Wow, who else? Well, I remember young Curtis Daniels too. I could say Curtis. I think I could say Curtis because I was one of the first. We were one of the first with Organized Noise and everybody to come in and support Patchwerk.
Right. Yeah. That's what
bring,
Dee mentioned as well.
Yeah, we brought Outkast in to record those records.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of them jokers followed, but we were like one of the first. You know what I'm saying? Oh wow. Gosh. I haven't mentioned Akon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Akon was first signed by me to Elektra Records.
Mm-hmm.
He was brought to me by my partner, who I can also mention, Eric Johnston, who helped me put Mr. together.
Yeah.
And we got the deal together for Mr. And then he brought me Akon. He sent me Akon's music when I was at Elektra, and I was like, yeah, 60 seconds after playing one of his records, they offered him a deal. Sylvia said sign him immediately.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we had that going on. There are people that I helped impact, like Sierra. Once again, I can mention Sierra, signing her to ASCAP, and having meetings with her when she was just a songwriter over there with Tricky Stewart and the rest of the Red Zone gang. Keri Hilson, before she came a part of the Clutch, she was part of a girl group. You know what I'm saying? And she began writing and became very good at it. Then she became a member of the Clutch, and then she started doing her solo thing. There's
There's a few.
There's a few. It's definitely like I'm going through my mind and like, who else? But there's a few of them that I could say that,
You helped.
I helped. I'm not responsible for, but I did help.
At the end of the day, you gotta want to support your own dream too. But I think you definitely impacted and influenced a lot of careers.
Right.
Over the years. I
think it's important. Like at the end of the day, you have to bring you have to share your knowledge. I'm not one of these people who, I gotta keep this for me. I don't want to create competition. To me, it just makes me better. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're on the come up and I help you and I see that tenacity in your eye, like you've got that eye of the tiger, then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to stay on top of my game. But I'm not going to not help this person. Because I'm afraid of that person.
Right.
Sure, it just boosts my things. Okay, let's see how you are, young buck. Let's see if you can rise to the challenge, because you have to dethrone me at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And that's not, I'm telling you, that's not an easy feat. I'm just going to keep it real. You know what I'm saying? There are very few people, and not just in Atlanta, in this business period, mm-hmm. who can say that they've done the things that I've done and worked with the people that I've worked with and watched them sell the amount of records that have been sold. TLC is one of the biggest selling groups of all times. You know what I'm saying? Outkast is the only rap group to win Album of the Year. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And its history, and the history of the Grammys. Those aren't easy feats.
Right.
Xscape is enjoying an immense comeback right now.
Right.
Which is finally, it's about damn time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I will say this, and I will hold it till my last dying day. They were the best female R&B group in the 90s. Mm. I dare anybody to come at me with a brownstone, with a jade, with a SWV. Come at me with that if you want to. I dare say even in Vogue. Mm. You know what I'm saying? But In Vogue came in the 80s, so.
Oh my God.
They came in the 80s, so they don't count. I'm talking about in the 90s.
They did coin R&B girl group.
They did. They were, it wasn't about the looks with Xscape. You know what I'm saying? It was about their sound, voices, and the fact that each one of those girls could hold their own when they had to do solo parts on the record.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, shoot. I know a lot.
It's good to go down memory lane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good to look at what you've done.
That's one of these, and now I feel good about myself. I can just skip on out of here like, yeah.
It's a beautiful day.
Thanks, Curtis. It's a beautiful day here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are you active on social media? Can you give us either a link to your social media where they can follow you as well as your business?
Sure. On Instagram, I wasn't one of the smart ones to have it consistent.
Okay.
So on Instagram, it's official_ Ian Burke, IANBURKE. On Twitter, I'm Orca172. All right. So just so everybody knows, I love dolphins. Anybody that knows me knows I have dolphin figurines, dolphin pictures, and things like that. And people think that orcas are whales. Orcas aren't whales. They're large dolphins. They're large predatory dolphins.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Since I'm a big body type individual, I'm the biggest dolphin in there. I'm an Orca 172. I'm a killer whale. So that's where I got that whole situation. Orca 172 on Twitter. And of course, you can find me on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure sitting down talking with you.
I know your ears are bleeding right now. I don't talk your head off.
Listen, this is what I do. So I love hearing the story. I love learning from people like you. And thank you for sitting down with us and tuning in to the
Thank you for having
podcast. Me. As always, y'all can follow me on social media at Sammy Approved. And thank y'all for listening.
Thank you.
Sonic.